illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good evening. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast live on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Matt Holloway. Today is October 8th in the year of our Lord 2017, and it is 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And today, we're going to talk to you about the concept of supremacy. And yes, supremacy is a lie. Exceptionalism is the truth. All that and more coming up here on the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. Hello, Facebook Live. Tune down the desk audio a little bit so you guys can hear me. Thank you for joining. If you would, please like, share, and invite your friends on. I think we're going to have a really, really interesting topic today. We're going to be refuting the concept not only of white supremacy, but of any manner of racial supremacy whatsoever here on the HollowNet podcast. I think you'll find it very interesting, especially in light of the events of this past week, where a white supremacist group, well, I'll have to tell you a bit during the show.
To give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Matt Holloway. Welcome to the show. According to the Daily Beast, it's not over. Yesterday, October 7th, 2017, white supremacist Richard Spencer suddenly reappeared with torch-bearing supporters 2 months after he organized the infamous hate march there. Spencer and his 50 or so followers gathered around a statue of Robert E. Lee in Emancipation Park, chanting white supremacist slogans. Quote, they were shouting, "You will not replace us. Russia is our friend. The South will rise again. We'll be back," said a University of Virginia faculty member who wished not to be named for fear of retribution. Now, Richard Spencer is, without doubt, one of the most vilely politically misguided souls I have ever read the work of. This is a man who wholeheartedly, with every bit of his being, believes in the concept of white nationalism and some say white supremacy as well, and judging from these slogans, that would seem to support that argument. What I will tell you today, here on the HollowNet podcast, is that white supremacy, black supremacy, any other supremacy of a cultural or racial nature is a delusion. White supremacy is a lie, as is black supremacy. White nationalism in today's world does not work. It simply is untenable and undesirable, and it is antithetical to the American dream. I'll explain why as we go forward, but I want to put that out there because these days the path is becoming very muddied. We have so many people who are glomming on to the conservative bandwagon, and I throw up air quotes for Facebook Live, conservative bandwagon, who are in no way or purpose conservatives. We have white supremacists who are joining in. We have neo-Nazis joining in. And, a lot of people went nuts because the president didn't choose to point out white supremacists or neo-Nazis when he said that, there were bad people on both sides with Charlottesville. And I think, had I my druthers, I would have worded that a little bit differently. White supremacists and white nationalists have a right to speak in this country. Just as you or I have a right to speak in this country. We disagree vehemently with their point of view, with their perspective, but they have the right to hold that point of view, the right to hold that perspective, and the right to speak and demonstrate as such. We have a right to challenge them on the battlefield of ideas and defeat their concepts, which are groundless and cannot be supported. They are arguments that are built on fallacies, built on racial thinking that was largely dismissed in the last century as a fallacy, that there is no difference between the mind of a black man and the mind of a white man, that our blood is the same color, our anatomy, if you take off the skin, is exactly the same. There is no appreciable difference. Race is a lie. Culture, on the other hand, is true. National identity is true. And I say that I stand arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, lockstep with every American, regardless of the color of their skin or the creed of their church. And if they are truly Americans, Americans first and Americans always, they believe in our founding principles. They believe in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal and that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can throw in property in there now that slavery is no longer an issue, because they originally wanted to put life, liberty, and property in there, but they knew they couldn't because the South would use that as an argument to extend slavery. But had our founders had their druthers, it would have said property as well. Anyone who has those beliefs in their heart, I don't care what color your skin is, all I see is red, white, and blue. I see my American brother and my American sister. Whether you're a Christian, a Jew, whether you're a Muslim, there are good Muslims that exist. There are great Muslims that are out there in the world, and we can't paint every Muslim, every follower of Islam with the same brush. There are reformers out there like Dr. Zuhdi Jasser who desperately believe and who desperately fight every day for a reformation of his faith. And we need to support these people who wish to abjure and walk away from Sharia law, who wish to put it appropriately into its past, the same way we Christians put the nastier parts of the Old Testament in our past, and don't let them guide us today. Because any true Christian knows that many of the nastier parts of the Old Testament were later retracted or reversed in the New Testament by Christ. I'm waxing religious, but I digress. I stand with every American who is in principle an American. Now, if you're an American citizen and you're a communist, if you're an American citizen and you're a socialist, I will fight you and debate you on the battlefield of ideas where your ideas will crumble because they are meritless and because they're un-American in their nature. But what is American is to not just tolerate your speech, not just tolerate that you hold those beliefs and those convictions, but to applaud you for holding those beliefs and those convictions, to respect you for holding them, and to embrace you for holding them. And most importantly, to protect you for holding them. We live in a nation where everyone has the right and the freedom of their speech, their ideas, and their conscience. And the moment we forget that, the moment we lose that, we cease to be American people. And we cease to be exceptional. And here, just as my dear brothers Dylan and Stephen on the Defenders of American Exceptionalism, I will defend the concept of American exceptionalism all day, every day, till my dying breath. And then beyond, because through the beauty of the internet, you have approximately 32 hours of me defending American exceptionalism, which you can actually tune into on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and any other streaming application at this time. And I strongly recommend that you like, share, and follow. So we got off on a little bit of a tear there. We're going to dig in a little bit more to this Charlottesville, Virginia story, which was on the Daily Beast. And I'm also going to give you my thoughts surrounding Colin Kaepernick. Yes, that's right. Colin Kaepernick now says that he will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I must say that I think I speak for a lot of football fans and a lot of American citizens when I play for him the following little ditty.
And it's too late, baby, now it's too late. But we really did try to make it. Something inside has tried, and I can't hide it, and I just can't make it.
On that note, we'll take a quick break here, and when we come back to the HollowNet podcast, we're going to discuss some of the news from across the pond. We're going to talk about the Catalan referendum. Will Catalonia find independence? And will the people of Kurdistan finally be free to pursue their own life in an international world? Will the referendum for the independence of Kurdistan be successful? You're listening to the HollowNet podcast. It'd be nice if I could say my show's title. The HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, I'm Matt Holloway. Stick around. That's right, Michael. That's right. I agree with your right to say it. Voltaire did say it best. How about that Colin Kaepernick thing? I really think, this is for Facebook Live people because I'm muted on Spreaker right now. I really do think he's just doing this to get signed. I mean, he's got to be running out of money at this point. It's got to be getting bad. And Twitter is just agog at this. Twitter is just lighting up.
Here at the New Conservative Resistance, we understand if you don't get enough of the HollowNet. So, we've made it easy for you. To find the latest on Matt Holloway, whether it be blogs or radio podcasts, go to thehollownet.com or hollownet.lanterns.buzz.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona, where it is 93 degrees in October. I'm Matt Holloway. Hey, a little shout out going here to my cousin up in the north, my cousin John, up from Newfoundland, where the Holloways are from there, and I'm probably going to mangle this badly, cousin, but what are you at? Glad we got some listeners on the Facebook Live today. Give a quick shout out to my good buddy Michael, who's quoting Voltaire. You know, making sure to let us know that while I might not agree with you, I will fight to the death for your right to say it. Good on you, Mike. All right. So, coming back to the latest news of the day, we were talking before about a story from the AP, it's actually on thedailybeast.com, that Richard Spencer, a avowed white supremacist, advocates for, quote, peaceful ethnic cleansing of non-whites, made a brief speech through a bullhorn at a demonstration in Charlottesville, and he said, quote, we are here to represent white America's interest. You don't represent me. You don't represent my interests, fool. What is the matter with you? He claims that Charlottesville residents have, quote, a false sense of community, according to a faculty member from the Virginia University there. Police arrived about 30 minutes after Spencer and his followers left. A group of locals apparently responded to Spencer's demonstration by gathering in Emancipation Park and marching to the UVA President Teresa Sullivan's house, where campus police halted them at her front porch. And they apparently were very angry at her for failing to stop Spencer's first march back in August 11. That march where, unfortunately, an innocent life was lost. I believe that was a young lady by the name of Heather, which gives me an especial hurt there because I have a member of my family who I love very much, also named Heather, and good friend named Heather, and it's just terribly unfortunate and absolutely heartbreaking. Now, what really is bothering me here, that was Heather Heyer, I believe. But really what's bothering me with this is you have a demonstration where a life was lost, a life was taken through the horrific actions of another, and your solution to this is to go and have another demonstration in the same spot? Real classy. Real flipping classy, Spencer. I support this man's right to speak his mind. I support his right to have views that I disagree with and I believe are despicable. What I don't support is putting some salt in that open wound. I don't think that's right. I think that's just god-awful of him to do. And I really can't get behind and support that. And I'll criticize that. I'm very, very critical of it. And you know what? We live in a free country, so I get to be critical of it. Now, I mentioned before that I believe that exceptionalism is reality. I do believe in American exceptionalism, but I don't believe in supremacy. I don't believe in the supremacy of any race. I don't believe in the supremacy necessarily of any one people. I don't believe in the supremacy of one human being over another. I believe that we all have value. I believe that we have intrinsic value as people. And that we were put on this earth by God, each for a purpose in his plan. So the concept that one race is superior to another disgusts me. It disgusts me. What this country is about freedom. And I want to let you know real quick that there's a big event coming for those who are inclined to discuss freedom and to talk about freedom of speech, even when it's speech you don't agree with. The freedom to speak in a controversial manner, because this man is controversial, make no mistake, and I don't agree with him by and large. He says a lot of things that make sense. He says a lot of things that I roll my eyes at. But I want to let you know that the United Liberty Coalition here in Arizona is presenting Free Speech AZ, featuring the explosive, the inimitable Milo Yiannopoulos. Now, this is going to take place October 27th and 28th. It's going to be at the Rawhide Western... Let me see here. I'm going to screw up this name. The Rawhide Western Town and Event Center. And that's located in Chandler, Arizona. If you want details on it, I've shared it on the HollowNet.com. I've also shared it on Facebook. Sorry, scratch that, reverse it. I've shared it on Facebook. I'm going to share it on the HollowNet.com. And that's hosted by the United Liberty Coalition. That's October 27th and 28th at 5 p.m. And that is at the Rawhide Western Town Center and Event Center on North Loop Road in Chandler, Arizona. I'm hoping to attend, and I'm hoping to broadcast live via Facebook Live from the event. I'm going to see if I can get some comments from Mr. Yiannopoulos. We're going to see how that goes. If you have any questions or need to contact somebody regarding it, go on uniteaz.info. That's uniteaz.info. Some good people there at ULC, United Liberty Coalition in Arizona. They can help you out with that. And coming up in the next few weeks, we're going to be talking to the Patriot Movement Arizona. I have a couple of good friends who run that outfit, and they have uncovered some very, very disturbing events taking place here in the Greater Valley of the Sun. We were talking before about white supremacy and how that is a fallacy and a delusion, that there is no supremacy based on race. There is only exceptionalism based on principle. What they have discovered here in the Phoenix Valley is a church which is preaching a very questionable message, a church that is preaching white privilege. Now, that's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks here on the HollowNet podcast. That is going to be a rather big story. I can't quite call it a HollowNet exclusive because we're going to be trying to get the word out about this because I feel that people should know. People should know what is going on in this ostensible house of God, that a hateful message, a message of victimization, a message of group accountability is going out. And the only thing that is going to cure this ill is an acceptance of personal responsibility, embracing personal responsibility, and embracing individual freedom and exceptionalism. So stay tuned for that. When we come back, we're going to go to the Middle East real quick. Not literally, of course, because I don't have money to fly. But we're going to go to news happening in the Middle East with regards to the Kurdistani referendum, and also news arising now out of the Catalan province, or Catalonia province in Spain, regarding their continuing efforts to assert their independence from the greater Spanish nation. All that and more when we come back here on the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. If you want to follow us on Lanterns, you can go to hollownet.lanterns.buzz, thehollownet.com. You can also listen, as I said before, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, I already mentioned, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere else that you get your fix for your conservative, constitutional, millennial point of view. Take a quick break here. When we come back, we go across the sea. Stick around.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HollowNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that, you know, we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HollowNet on patreon.com, and you can access that at patreon.com/thehollownet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HollowNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial, constitutional, conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HollowNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the south.
On Lanterns Media Network, the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from the ridiculously warm Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. So, did want to give a real quick, radio inside world shout out here to my good buddy Chris Merrill, who is probably not listening to this show because he doesn't have time to listen to podcasts. Yeah, I believe that. But anyway, he doesn't have time to listen to podcasts, but he is going to be doing a little bit of a sit-in on Los Angeles' KFI AM. That's KFI AM in Los Angeles, 8 p.m. today Pacific time, to catch the Chris Merrill show in somewhat of an abbreviated format ever since his departure from 550 KFYI here in Arizona. So, yeah, if you've been missing Chris, tune in. 8 p.m. tonight, KFI in Los Angeles. So, wanted to get to the Catalonian independence movement. Apparently there's been a huge unity rally in Barcelona, massive demonstrations, hundreds of thousands, according to the New York Daily News, converging on Barcelona to rally against the Catalan bid for independence. According to Bloomberg, the Catalan president is unbowed amid mounting pressure to back down. If we look a little more in depth at the New York Times, the march seems to be following the chant, "I am Spanish," as thousands in Barcelona protest the push for independence. So that story developing, according to BBC News, going to their article on it now. Let's see here. At least 350,000 people gathered in Barcelona, the capital of Catalonia, for a rally against their independence from Spain. They carried banners saying, "Together we are stronger," and "Catalonia is Spain." Similar rallies were held across Spain this past Saturday. The final results from the referendum in the wealthy northeastern region of Spain suggested 90%, 90% of the 2.3 million people who voted backed independence, and the turnout was 43%. So here's the thing that we have to look at. That sounds like a damning number, doesn't it? 90% voted for the independence of Catalonia. 90% of 43%, to be precise. So 43 equals 100, okay? So 90% of that. So that comes down to 39% approximately of Catalonia, of the overall voting eligible population, voted to secede. This is not a bomb drop. This is definitely not any manner of a... what's the word I'm looking for? Don't you hate it when that happens? I mean, really, you just lose the word. I'm looking like straight into the camera on Facebook Live right now because I lost the dang word. This isn't a mandate. That's it. This is not a mandate from the Catalonian people, from the Catalan people, to secede from Spain. It's 39%. It's a little bit over a third of the population wants to secede. So what does that tell you? That tells you that approximately 60% either don't want to secede, believed that as the Spanish Supreme Court decided, the Spanish Constitutional Court decided that the referendum was unconstitutional, or just couldn't friggin' be bothered. How about that? So if here in Arizona, we've been through this now, mind you. We've been through this. We had Tucson, Cochise County, I think it is. Tucson. Is Tucson Cochise? Hang on, I gotta Google it now. I can't get that wrong. I mean, this is my own dang state. Let me see. Tucson County. Pima. Okay, Pima County. So apparently Pima County a ways back had themselves a little vote, and they decided, it was going around, it was a big movement for Pima County to secede from the rest of Arizona and to form their own state. Okay? So it didn't go anywhere. But this would be like if the residents of Pima County, if 39% of the residents of Pima County voted to do so, and the whole world was going, "Oh my God, it looks like Tucson is about to secede from the state of Arizona and form its own state." I was putting on my best Alex Jones voice there. This is looking like a whole lot of hubbub over not very much. Seriously. I mean, it's looking like a whole lot of ado about nothing. 39% of the region voted to secede. That means 60% didn't. Ergo, in my oldest parliamentary speak that I could think of, the motion is defeated. Whether it was constitutional or not would appear to be moot. That does not make any realistic threshold that I'm aware of that is acceptable in the free world, or that would be accepted on the international level as a mandate for independence or a mandate for secession. Now, there are plenty of people who are going to hop on and tell me how it was only 3% of the United States citizenry who supported independence. Most of the records I show say it's closer to 10. But let's not forget that there was a war over it. That doesn't really happen anymore in the civilized world. It happens at the ballot box. And if you can't pull it off at the ballot box, you have to pull it off from the barrel of a gun. And that's what happened in the United States in 1776. Then again, in 1776, even if 100% of the American citizenry had voted for independence, it wouldn't have mattered worth a damn, because it was a monarchy, and we had no rights. You had the king. That was it. But what I'm getting at here is that this Catalan referendum is hardly definitive. It is not this gigantic seismic shock. Now, it is a bit of a seismic shock. And what really could develop into something is the Kurdistani referendum. The Kurdish referendum, which has seen massive growth in its supporters. Now, I'm going to get to that a little bit. It seems here the most recent story is from, and I'm so upset I'm even clicking on it, Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera reports Kurdish referendum sees massive growth in supporters. Iraq's Kurdish region has voted in favor of secession. The tribal leaders turned to Kurdish President Masoud Barzani for help, and now they fully back the referendum for secession. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has rejected the referendum and is threatening to retake control of the semi-autonomous province in Iraq. Increasing numbers of Sunnis, however, are calling for further separation. Al Jazeera's Hoda Abdel Hamid reported from Rabia in northern Iraq. And, you know, if we look at this, and we really look at this, ABC put together a nice story about what you need to know about the Kurdish referendum. Really, what it's coming down to is that going back to World War I, the Kurdish people were essentially assured some form of independence. And in the war with ISIS, and in the war with Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, the Kurdish Peshmerga forces have not just been instrumental, they have carried the fight. Where we wouldn't or couldn't, they have carried the fight, and they have been victorious. In ABC's report, it says, relations with the Kurds in northern Iraq and the rest of the nation have never been good, and there's a lot of pent-up hostility and resentment. Despite the recent facade of unity between Kurdish Peshmerga and the Iraqi National Army in the battle against ISIS, sectarianism has spiked in Baghdad and Erbil recently, with grievances that have been shielded in recent months now on naked display. For Iraq's Kurds, the memories are still fresh of Saddam Hussein gassing their countrymen at Halabja in 1988, killing as many as 5,000 people. They also point to Saddam's attempts at ethnic cleansing after the First Gulf War that were only averted when the U.S. instituted a no-fly zone over the Kurdistan region. Then there are financial disagreements. Ever since the price of oil bottomed out, Baghdad has slashed the salaries of public servants in Kurdistan by up to 70%, with little financial benefit from Baghdad. Many in Erbil are now wondering if striking out on their own could be any worse. Militarily, the Iraqi army took a real beating in the fight against ISIS, while Kurdish Peshmerga troops, for the most part, watched from the sidelines. I'm going to object to that. I don't find that to be true based on other sources that I have read. So I'm going to break from ABC's story on that because I have found that in other sources to be far from the truth. I would refer you to several reports from The Blaze and check that out. I go back to ABC. Ranks are depleted and morale is stretched. Iraq's army has not been this weak for a long time. Now, the United States and the United Kingdom, along with France, the Arab League, and the United Nations, have warned that the ballot could have a destabilizing effect on an already volatile region. They say it could lead to a bloody breakup of Iraq and bring more harm than good. So here's where I think we are wrong here. I think the best thing for the American government to do, and the best thing for us to stress in the United Nations, is that a strong and independent Kurdistan is only beneficial to Iraq. It is only beneficial to Iraq because it will lead to a more homogenous Iraqi parliament. It will create a buffer zone in between Iraq, Turkey, and Iran. And it will finally give the Kurdish people a true national home. The Kurdish people are spread throughout Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. In Iran and Turkey, they have been severely oppressed, if not rounded up and killed. It's very similar, in fact, to what happened to the people of Armenia and Azerbaijan and the Armenian genocide that took place in the early 20th century, perpetrated largely by the forces of the then Ottoman Empire and later on by the forces of Turkey under Ataturk. So it's a very, very similar story, what happened to Kurdistan. And on the Nineveh Plain, which is where Kurdistan is centered, and Erbil, this is one of the oldest, most ancient holds of Christendom in the Middle East. These are paths that the disciples walked. These are churches that were built by the original 12 disciples of Christ. Okay? That is how old Christianity is here. And ISIS attempted to root them out and burn it to the ground, and the Kurds held strong. They fought. Sometimes with little to no support, in fact, while getting the ever-loving crap bombed out of them by Russia and Turkey. So I believe, I think, I feel in my heart that it is time the United States said enough is enough. Give these people their home. So with that, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to look forward in the week at what we can expect. I know we had mentioned the United Liberty Coalition is having a great big get-together with Mr. Milo Yiannopoulos. Mr. Milo Yiannopoulos coming to the Valley, October 27th and 28th, and we are keenly interested to see what that brings to the Valley of the Sun. Now, in the past, when there have been explosive speakers in Arizona, like President Donald Trump last July 2016, he spoke at the Arizona Fairgrounds, we found that the heat of the Arizona sun dampened the response of groups like Antifa, BLM, and so many others. But in Arizona, the weather is starting to cool. That's right, for us, 93 is cool. We're starting to have some of those nice 80-degree days, some of those days where the snowbirds come down and they like to put up their RVs. So, as the weather is getting better, could the violence and demonstrations get worse? We'll find out. So come back. We're going to be here on the HollowNet podcast and Lanterns Media Network up to the top of the hour here. And we will be reviewing the week ahead and setting ourselves on the right path. Defying notions of racial supremacy and holding up individual and American exceptionalism. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. Stick around.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island or a large part of it were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old.
All levels of income are better off than they were in 1979. But what the honourable member is saying is that he will...
I love this audio.
...poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That way you will never create the wealth for better social services as we have. And what a policy! Yes, he would rather have the poor poorer, provided the rich were less rich. That is the liberal policy. Yes, it came out, he didn't intend it to, but he did.
I've spoken of the shining city all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city, built on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds, living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here.
As we begin our bicentennial, America is still one of the youngest nations in recorded history. Long before our forefathers came to these shores, men and women had been struggling on this planet to forge a better life for themselves and their families. In man's long upward march from savagery and slavery throughout the nearly 2,000 years of the Christian calendar, the nearly 6,000 years of Jewish reckoning, there have been many deep, terrifying valleys, but also many bright and towering peaks. One peak stands highest in the ranges of human history. One example shines forth of a people uniting to produce abundance and to share the good life fairly and with freedom. One union stands out, the promise of justice and opportunity for every citizen. That union is the United States of America.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
We're back. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network, wrapping it up for this hour, putting this one in the bag for October the 8th in the year of our Lord 2017, a beautiful Sunday night. Now, before we go, I really want to kind of fill you in on a book that I've been reading. I've been reading The Next 100 Years by George Friedman, who's one of the founding members of Stratfor. Stratfor is strategic forecasting. They're one of the premier foreign intelligence companies in the world, and they do major projections on what the world's going to look like. It's been a fascinating read, and I plan to do a podcast surrounding it, and I'm going to pull a little bit from their YouTube and discuss that. But a lot of what we read in that book is actually coming to pass, and that's something that's been astonishing me. And one of those things is the rise of Turkey. Now, we've talked about the potential rise of Turkey before here on the HollowNet, and I've written a couple of stories about it as well. But something to be noted here is that Turkey's President Erdogan is calling the Iraqi Kurdish referendum illegitimate. Now, this is a man who basically survived a coup in this past year with the help of the military, and he is the one that is going to stand here and call a referendum, a vote by the people of the Kurdish region. He's going to call it illegitimate. Okay, Erdogan. Now, an important note here is the Turks and the Russians, who've got about 2,000 years of bad blood between them, met up. And that is when President Erdogan called this an illegitimate referendum. You really do have to look hard about where their interests lie. Okay? It is in the interests of Turkey to keep the situation in the Middle East the way it is. Why? Because Turkish supremacy over the region, there's that word again, supremacy. Turkey's preeminence over the region is dependent upon a weak Iraq and a weak, unstable Syria. It invites Turkish primacy over the region, which, in conjunction with pressure from the Russian Federation, can lead to profitable trade. Profitable trade like a pipeline. A pipeline that takes gas from one side of Arabia, the Persian Gulf, to the other at the Mediterranean. And that is something that Vladimir Putin is desperate to stop. Stability in that region, unity in that region, spells the end of Russian dominance over natural gas in Europe. And that is the lifeblood that is keeping the heart in Moscow pumping right now. Oil prices are not as great as they've been in the past. What is keeping them afloat is Europe's dependency upon their natural gas supply. So if there's any kind of peaceful resolution in Iraq, the Kurdish region, and Syria, that spells the end of Europe's dependence on Russia. That is something that Putin simply cannot allow to come to pass. So even as ISIS is defeated, Turkey and Russia are shopping for a new enemy. And the Kurdish people are wearing a bullseye. The question is, will the United States, the UK, France, and Europe uphold this move for independence? I tell you what, Israel is behind Kurdish independence. They fully support Kurdish independence. Why? Because this is a historically balanced people who have a very similar historical province to the Jewish people, where they have been hurting for a home, and that tugs at a lot of the heartstrings in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And it should have our attention as well. So do you side with Putin, who's trying desperately to keep a natural gas pipeline from connecting the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean? Do you side with Tayyip Recep Erdogan, president of Turkey, who's just trying to maintain his tenuous grip on the primacy of the Turkish people in the Middle East and possible dreams that he may have for there to be a Turkish-centered caliphate? Ah, didn't think of that, did you? ISIS was a threat to Turkey because ISIS dared to claim the mantle of the caliphate, which in the eyes of many Turkish Islamists, like President Erdogan, belongs exclusively to the Turkish, nay, the Ottoman people. And the seat of the caliphate must always and may always and need always be in Istanbul. Few thoughts there. With that, we bring this episode of the HollowNet podcast to a close here on the Lanterns Media Network. Running a little bit over my time, but I'll cap it off with this. Thank you for watching and listening. Good night. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, Arizona, I'm Matt Holloway, and I'm out of here. All right, Facebook Live, it's been real, but I'm out of here. It is Sunday, the 8th of October in the year of our Lord 2017. Make sure to tune in next week. We're going to have more to say on the Kurdish referendum. Hopefully things have shaken loose in Catalonia at that point, and they've gotten over themselves a little bit. And we'll talk more about the United Liberty Coalition's rally that is to be held, where you can meet Milo Yiannopoulos on October 27th and 28th here in the Phoenix area. Stay tuned. Good night. God bless.